The regular season continues to tick away, and in no time, it will pretty much be the play-in tournament. The play-in tournament in which it looks like the Raptors will be firmly embedded inside of. Hey everyone, it's JJ Buckets, and the concept for today's video is pretty simple, straightforward, and to the point, but just for a quick rundown, ranking the teams in, I guess, of which the Raptors want to see from the least to the most inside of the play-in tournament. Pretty much that, yeah. So before I hop into things, just make sure you're leaving a like on the video. It takes no amount of time and it makes a huge difference for me. And if you're new here and you like the content that you watch today, just make sure you subscribe to the channel. The march towards 1K continues, and yeah, I'd love to have you as a part of it. So with that being said, let's hop into today's video. So again, just remember, we're ranking these teams from the least preferable matchup to the most preferable matchup. And with the least preferable matchup, I don't think it's any secret that should things stay the same way that they are, the Raptors do not want to see the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, I'll go into a little bit of detail here, but I'm going to call a spade a spade. The Brooklyn Nets are a better team than the Toronto Raptors. I know the Nets have had a lot of internal, I guess, turmoil, so to speak, and I understand that in all likelihood, you know, unless, you know, the Raptors swap seeds with the Nets and the mandate in New York is lifted by then, Kyrie Irving probably wouldn't play in this game. Nonetheless, the Nets are a better team than the Raptors. Again, they just are, in my opinion. Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, even if Kyrie Irving's not out there, you have the, I don't know, top 3, top 4 best talent in the world there of Kevin Durant playing in this game. You have a team that suddenly has a bunch of new depth from the James Harden trade, and we saw it on full display at the time of recording, at least yesterday, where the Nets really took it to the 76ers, and I mean, like, yikes, they really took it to the 76ers. So there's that, and then on top of everything, it's the X factor of Ben Simmons could realistically be playing there, and I know there's a lot of, you know, Ben Simmons haters amongst Raptors fans. There's a lot of people in general that enjoy taking a shit on Ben Simmons, but let's not pretend like he's not a good basketball player, especially in a new role in Brooklyn where he gets to play alongside some tremendous talent and has a chance to kind of reset his mental, which has kind of obviously been a big thing as well. Ben Simmons could be a huge factor in this game. Again, it's just tough to say now because he's still not playing, but he could play dividends. But at the end of the day, even if Simmons isn't there, just it's Kevin Durant in essentially a one-game playoff. Yeah, you don't want that. You definitely don't want that. So the Nets are absolutely at the bottom of this list. The Raptors do not want to see the Brooklyn Nets when it comes to the play-in tournament. Now, the next two, I really do think you can make an argument for either one kind of being the preferable matchup, but, you know, I got my opinion on it. And in this scenario, I think realistically, it's the anticipation that, say, when the Raptors lose to the Nets, they will have to play the winner of this matchup. And of that matchup, I think I'd rather see the Hornets, so I'll get into that later. So the Hawks. Again, similar to the Nets, the Hawks have been a little shaky this year. I think shaky's a good word. I mean, obviously they were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and they have not replicated that momentum whatsoever this year, am I right? That being said, similarly to, I guess, the first ranking here when I was talking about the Nets, I think it's the idea of seeing Trae Young in a one-game playoff that doesn't excite me. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Trae Young. I think a lot of people overrate him based on his, at times, gaudy numbers that aren't always translating to wins. So I'm really being counterintuitive of myself and the point that I'm trying to make here. But nonetheless, I do think Trae Young is a tremendous talent, and again, it's a similar argument to the Kevin Durant argument, although obviously not to the same stature as a Kevin Durant. You don't want to see a player of Trae Young's caliber in a one-game playoff. If you're if I was a top-tier NBA talent, which I'm not, naturally, you know, if you're telling me, hey, all you have to go do is just play your mind, like out of your mind for one game to secure a playoff berth, you take that. And I think if you're as good as Trae Young is, you'd see that as the opportunity that it is, and you raise your level of play. Now, the rest of the Hawks roster in itself it's all right. I mean, it was good last year. This year, again, they haven't been able to replicate the same magic, but they still do have some pieces there as well that can complement. And overall, just I wouldn't want to take the gamble on this matchup personally. I do think that the Raptors would win. I don't think that's the conversation that I'm trying to have. But again, in terms of preferential, who you'd want to face, I do believe at the end of the day, you'd probably rather play the Hornets than you would the Hawks. So naturally, that brings me to the preferred matchup here, which is the Charlotte Hornets. And the Hornets obviously actually have a better record than the Hawks do, but again, we're talking about essentially a one-game playoff here, and don't get me wrong, I very much so like what the Hornets have been building there. I think they have a good future, especially with LaMelo Ball at the helm. That being said, I don't think they're quite there yet. Like, the Hornets are a good team. The Hornets are a solid team. They've been a little up and down. They've had stretches where they've looked damn good, and they've had stretches where they've looked bad. In a one-game playoff, the fact that your biggest, I guess, obstacle, hurdle would be figuring out how to scheme LaMelo Ball, and obviously Bridges as well. Like, you take that. When you have the defense that the Raptors do, I think the Hornets definitely have some pieces that can really step up in a one-game playoff scenario, and they have some quality players. They have a good team overall. But if you're talking about the Raptors and what they have in terms of their starting lineup, assuming most guys are going to be healthy by then, and in terms of just the top to bottom starters, and hopefully, you know, at least one guy stepping up off that bench, I think this is a relatively easy matchup for the Raptors, all things considered. Yes, they've lost to the Hornets this year. I mean, actually, the Raptors have traded wins and losses with all of these teams this year. I think that's kind of notable, although at the end of the day, the regular season doesn't really matter when you're talking about a playoff, or in this case, play-in scenario. But nonetheless, I think the Raptors do match up well for the most part here. I think between Siakam, Freddie, Gary Trent Jr., hopefully OG by that time, obviously Scotty Barnes, all those guys, you have enough talent and you have enough, I would say, what's the word I'm looking for? Cohesion? I don't know if that's it, but that's close enough. Amongst your guys that this is a matchup that for the most part you should be able to, I don't want to say breeze by, but it's a very winnable game for Toronto, and I think at the end of the day, the Hornets are probably the team that you absolutely want to see the most should you get to a scenario where you're matching up with them in that play-in. So that's essentially going to do it for me. What do you folks think? Who do you think the Raptors have the easiest matchup with in the play-in? Do you agree with me if that's the Hornets? Cool, let me know. Do you disagree and you think it's the Hawks, or for whatever reason the Nets? Cool, let me know. Drop it all in the comment section. I love reading it. I love to hear it. Yeah, that's gonna be the video today. Again, to reiterate what I said at the beginning, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. It goes such a long way, and that 1K mark is very much so within eyesight, I guess, that I'm really looking forward to hitting it. So if you're helping me hit it, thank you. And yeah, like the video if you have a second. Like, that's literally all it takes is a second, and it makes a massive difference for me, so appreciate it. I do. If you were expecting this video, I guess, on Thursday, Friday, sorry that I guess it's a day late. I anticipate to be dropping this on Saturday just because I'm taking the extra time there. Again, without going too much into it, it's not been a good time for me. I think I've mentioned on the channel here before that I am Ukrainian, so this is a not fun time to be alive. Yeah, so apologies if I'm a couple days late and you were really looking forward to seeing a video from me a few days earlier, but that's just where I am right now, so thank you for your patience. That's gonna do it for me here today. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see everybody next time. It is JJ Buckets, and I am signing off.